In a world filled with sharks, bears, and killer bees, one man is brave enough to stay indoors to bring you the latest in gaming, movie, and pop culture news. That man is Tom Awesome, and this is the Outside is Overrated podcast.
Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated, a grown-up podcast about gaming and nerd pop culture. On this podcast, we discuss video games, books, TV shows, movies, and board games. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Tom Sidlacek, and we've got a great show lined up for you. It's time for our annual board game show. Last year, we took a look at the overall hobby of board gaming, discussing themes, mechanics, and some of our favorite games, recommending over a dozen out-of-print titles that listeners and I couldn't find in our local game stores.
There's some that were in print.
There were some, but it was more challenging than I would have thought. I think I bought 4 games off of that show. This month, we're taking a more focused approach. We are talking about deck builders specifically. We're going to explain what deck builders are, break down some of the big variations on the theme, and tell you what's worth buying right now. Joining me for the discussion tonight are the Hobby Box, Joe Burns.
Heyo.
And the Ox, Adam Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Adam, you haven't been on the main show since our Star Wars Imperial Assault episode. Does that stinging defeat at the hands of the heroic Empire still stick with you, or have you moved on with your life?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly feel the stinging defeat of not having time to play right now, so life's a little busy with 2 little ones. Kind of like, not really a new job anymore, but a project on the new job that's taking a lot of travel time up. So I'd happily take another Empire pummeling if it meant I was sitting down at a game table. So.
All right, so we'll bust out Imperial Assault. We'll just skip like the first 6 out of 7 missions, and we'll get right to that finale so that the Empire has the upper hand. That sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, so
Doesn't sound awesome to me at all. See, on the inverse of that, I'm happy that I've had the opportunity to actually play a few different games that I hadn't played before recently. Some prepping for the show, and others just in general. And so yeah, I've actually been able to play a good amount of board games in the last month or so, which is nice.
That's awesome. What are some of the new games that you've gotten to the table?
We'll talk about a few of them a little bit later, so I'll leave those off. But the one that I got to the table that I know we've talked about on the podcast before is The Witcher Old World, which has deck building as a main mechanic in it, so that will also come up later on in the show. But it's one of those that I was originally going to back the Kickstarter, and I didn't, and I felt bad about it. And then when they had the Kickstarter for their next Witcher game, I went on there and backed that as well as the Old World. And so finally got that to the table a couple weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. So looking forward to trying that with a larger group of people.
Burns, we've been friends for a long time, and you know that I love board games and that I love The Witcher, so why are you playing Witcher the Old World without me? Well,
this was, we got together to watch a Gophers football game.
I've watched one of those. I've been to one this year. My child was the star of the game. True.
I don't know. Next time I play it, I will invite you, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, can I be Triss?
No, because it doesn't take place in the current timeline. It's older times.
So the Old World. Got it.
Yeah.
So have you then backed the Legacy?
I did not. I think is it still, as of yesterday, it was still extra time?
Still going, and they broke a Game Fund record by, I think they're over 10 million now.
So basically, GameFound has this thing. I don't know. They haven't always had it.
It's new as of this year.
Okay, but basically, when a campaign ends, they get a little bit of extra time to allow people to bid or put in, not bids, but
right.
put in to back it again. And every time someone backs it or adds to their pledge, it extends the timer, and it's now I think a week.
Yeah, and there are rules, so only one account can reset the timer, I believe, once.
Oh, so it has to be all separate pledges?
It has to be all separate pledges, and it has to be adding more money. So if you're already at all in, now companies are doing this end game add-on, which is usually just little gizmos or plushies or a small card pack just so people can up their pledge by just a little bit. But then you have people just coming back in, I think there's that pressure of because every time someone buys something, it resets it up to 3 minutes, right? So then, but if you log on, then you're like, oh my God, I have 3 minutes to get my purchase in. So I think it like pushes, it definitely pushes people to spend probably quicker than what they had analyzed post pledge. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how long that one's been going on.
Well,
so.
and it was funny because, you know, I was following that that campaign since before it was posted, like basically when they had the preview up and everything. And I've been thinking about it. It's just I haven't played the original game enough yet. And it has some of the same mechanics. There's different things to it. Is from what I could understood, but it's a legacy version of it, which would be fun to play through. But it's just a lot of money right now, and I'm looking at trying to pare down my board game collection a little bit because my whole thing was I was going to buy one more shelf, and then those are the shelves. If my games don't fit on them, I have to get rid of games, and it's like they're already full because it was like all the things that weren't on a shelf needed to go on a shelf. But I saw the ad for it that it was like end game, you know, and there's like 5 minutes left on the ad, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I wonder how long ago this ended, and I clicked on it. It's like, oh, it's still going, and then I checked it out like 12 hours later. It's like, oh, it's still going.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I think it is still going. I could double check, but
I believe it was today when I saw it. Yeah. So, and from what I hear, you have the other two games, and it's kind of a meld of both games with then a legacy aspect where the character development takes a little bit longer.
Got it.
Kind of toll on things.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's probably a lot of the... I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of cool thing that they've used to increase it, but...
You know what else is cool? Going to a store and just buying a game. I'm glad that crowdfunding exists, and I'm glad that it is a way to get games made. And I know that the board gaming industry would be different without it, but it is just not for me. So, like, thank you if you backed it. Thank you to anyone listening who backed it. I'm just going to go to the source when it comes out and hopefully get it.
And the source as in the store, not like you're not going to fly over to Poland and buy it once it's available on retail.
You don't know what I do with my spare time, Burns.
True. You could, you might. I don't know.
Similar to Burnsy, I've gotten a lot of games to the table recently. We went on our annual, the first weekend of December, we go to Two Harbors to celebrate Phoenix is my dating anniversary. Now it's become a family trip. But this year at our cabin trip, we played 15 different games.
Wow.
15 different games. Granted, half or close to half of those were kids' games. So, like, we introduced the kids to a lot of different stuff, but like Daisy wanted to play games all day, and then the kids would go down, and Phoenix and I would play 1 to 2 games every night. Like, she would put the kids down, I'd read the rules on a new game and get new game plus old game set up. So like, there's something new, then something we can just jump into. Like, we played the Avatar deck building game, Aang's Destiny. We played Hero Realms for the first time. We found a game called Distant Suns at Goodwill the day that we left, and like that was the hidden gem of the trip. It was just it was awesome. Like, we've reached a phase where we can play a lot more games in our life. Like, Adam, I'll say this to you as also a dad of 2. Like,
there's hope.
It's awesome once they get a little older.
Yeah.
And, like, sleep reliably and can, like, entertain themselves for periods during the day. Like, we didn't want to go on this trip and say, like, just watch TV so mom and dad can play board games. But, like, there was some downtime, and the kids like to have their tablet time, and they like to watch TV. And, like, now we're able to fill that time. Like, we could have 2 hours to play a game during the day, and that is just a tremendous boon for us as parents.
Yeah,
I bet.
Also, funny anecdote, we had that trip to Goodwill. The girls were in school and preschool, and so we go to Goodwill for an hour, and it's like, oh, I love scanning the Goodwill shelves for games. Like, just love it. And I'm always like, is there a treasure here? And we wound up picking up like 7 different games that day. And the dude checking us out, we didn't realize this at the time. Like, he seemed kind of checked out. He only scanned like half our stuff. Like, the total bill, we had this big stack of games and like some books and some clothes and like all this stuff, and our total bill was like $33. I'm like, that seems a little low. And so we get home, I look at the receipt, I'm like, 17 items, and I count everything up. 33 items. It's like, and like, I don't know.
Maybe it was like a buy one, get one free on the entire store or something. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, he clearly didn't scan at least one thing. And like, I should have said something at the store. I didn't, because I didn't think it was that systemic of a problem.
Yeah.
But so we played like Distant Suns for free, and it was great.
Nice.
That's good.
One more thing before we jump into the deck building main show. Burnsy, now that the 2025 Video Games Awards are in the rear view, did anything surprise you about the award season?
I mean, not really. And then there's still like some of the like the outlets and stuff like that will have their games of the year that'll go for like the next couple of weeks. Some of them wait until the beginning of January and stuff. But no, I mean, Expedition 33 won the majority of the awards at the Game Awards, and the ones that have happened so far, which was expected and I mean deserved. I mean, I have my quibbles with the game, but it's a lot less with the game and a lot more with a lot of other things surrounding the game. But the one thing that's always a little bit of a bummer when games like this sweep, and, you know, like Baldur's Gate 3 did it a couple of years ago. I think Breath of the Wild did it, or Elden Ring definitely did it the year that Elden Ring was out, for the most part. And so it's just like, it's one of those things where there's always so many other really good games that come out in that year, and especially this year. I mean, you had things like Hollow Knight Silksong, which we'll be playing on the podcast in the next couple of months, and you know, Dispatch, which came out very close to when the awards locked off, so that's why it kind of missed some of those things. And Hades 2 came out this year, and there's a lot of great games that came out this year. And it's like, when this one game wins award after award after award, even if it's deserved, it's just kind of a bit of a bummer that like some of these other games aren't getting like their flowers a little bit, because obviously everybody's heard of Expedition 33. I don't think there's a lot of people tuning into the Game Awards who's like, oh, this is an interesting game, I never even saw this, you know. I should check it out. Yeah, and so that's the one thing that's always a little bit of a bummer with that.
Well, what I think is interesting is you mentioned Elden Ring and you talked about Baldur's Gate 3, and now Expedition 33 is on like the same plane as those games from an award standpoint. Like, it swept the awards. Like, those two other games are like phenomenal masterpieces. And I loved Claire Obscure Expedition 33 very much. It was my favorite thing that I played this year, and it was great. But like, to put it on the same plane as like Elden Ring, which I also know you hated, Burns, but like, to me, it's just not even the same neighborhood as Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3.
I mean, from what I've played of both games, I would agree with you 100%. Yeah, I don't know. That's a topic for another podcast. At some point, we can peel back the layers on that. I know I've thrown a fair amount of jabs in that direction. And like I said, I really don't think... I have like no qualms with Sandfall Interactive and what they did with that game. I think they did a phenomenal job, especially for it being like their first game as a studio, and for the most part the first game that a lot of the people that were on that actually like did a lot of like developing for. I think a lot of them used to be like Ubisoft employees, but they weren't like, I think they're like QA and things like that. They weren't actually like the people designing and developing the actual parts of the games that they were working on. And so I think that's really cool, and it's awesome. And the fact that on a $10 million budget they were able to do what they did with Unreal Engine is phenomenal for the industry also. And so, you know, I don't have any qualms with them and what they did. I do think that the game has been blown out of proportion for how good it is. Because I would agree with you, Tom. I don't think it really stands in the same level of those two games that I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it.
It was fine.
So much better than fine, Burns. Before we move on to the main topic, please support the show at patreon.com/OiO. You can help us pay for all the media that we consume for the show, and it is tremendously appreciated. That's patreon.com/OiO, and you can back the show for as little as $2 a month. You can also follow each of us on social. Email the show at overratedpod@gmail.com. That's overratedpod@gmail.com. Find me at TomSidlogicOIO on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow Burns at HobbyBoxBurns on X and twitch.tv/HobbyBoxBurns. Follow Adam at Ox's Auditorium on Instagram, and follow the show at facebook.com/OutsideIsOverrated. Alright guys, let's start with the basics. What is a deck builder? In a deck building game, every player starts with the same small, weak deck of cards. Over the course of the game, you acquire new cards that permanently enter your deck, which you then shuffle and reuse. There are adjacent ideas like dice builders, bag builders, and pool builders, but for this show, we are focusing specifically on cards. And anyone who references dice will be struck with a ruler. We've done episodes...
All of mine are dice. No.
We've done episodes on a number of other card games, like Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings, the card game. Those are a little bit different. Similar to Magic the Gathering, in those games, you construct a deck before playing, and what you draw is what you get. In deck building games, you are consistently upgrading your deck with new cards throughout the game. This core mechanic rose to prominence in 2008 with the release of Dominion, designed by Donald X. Vaccarino?
Yeah, close enough.
Adam and Joey, you guys own roughly 8,219 board games between the two of you. Where would you rank deck builders among like core mechanics? And then why do you either love it or hate it with a burning, fiery passion?
I mean, for me, it's difficult. And I will say, like, I vastly prefer deck builders to CCGs like Magic and things like that, because with those games, I have all these cards, and it's like there's so many options trying to figure out how to make a configuration, like from looking at all those cards, like starting from that level and then trying to pare it down into a deck is so much more painful than like, oh, I'm going to buy that card and put it into my deck, and I'm going to buy that card and put it into my deck, and then I'm going to get rid of this card. And so yeah, deck builders are much better from that perspective for me, but the weird thing with me is when I think about games that I enjoy and I look back to stuff that I play or like what are my favorite games, I really don't lump things into like specific categories. So it's really hard for me to try to think back to like what it is about deck building specifically that I enjoy or not enjoy.
So then, like, how do you decide what you're gonna play? Like, the way my brain works is like, all right, I want to play a game. What type of game do I want to play? All right, engine builder. Let's get Scythe to the table, or let's get Wingspan to the table, or like I start my decision making at like that base mechanic, and then I think of my favorite games under that category.
See, I guess I'm much more like, well, let's be honest. Nowadays, it's like, okay, which of these games that I've owned for 4 years haven't I played? And how can I get that to the table? That seems to be the first step. But otherwise, it's really, for me, it starts at like player count. How many people are we going to have together? And then, okay, I have these games that fit into that mold. Do a little bit of looking at like Board Game Geek to see what fits into like what's best at that range, you know, because there's lots of games that say you could play with 2 to 6 people, but then it's like really playing with 2 people is
the best,
terrible, and then playing with 6 people takes like, you know, half a day,
right?
And so it's one of those things where that tends to be where I start. Also, it's like theme or vibe sometimes. So like if we're going to be playing, if we're doing something else that's somewhat related, I'll try to pick a game that's of a similar theme or something like that. Or it's just like, I really like Scythe. I haven't played Scythe in a while. Let's play Scythe kind of thing. And so that tends to be the way that I look at some of it. And so that made it hard, like coming to this podcast, because it's like I look at all my board games in my den, and I'm like, do I have a deck building game? And then I started to like pare it down, and it's like, oh, okay, For Glory, that's a deck building game, and you know, and so on and so forth. So I started to figure it out.
So you brought your whole collection over to my house the other night?
No. Well, I guess for specifically deck building games, probably. I mean, I have other games that have deck building as a mechanic within it. But yeah, those are probably the 2 only like specifically deck building games that I own. Yeah.
Also, fun fact, once we play through most of our collection, we know we can then select games by criteria of mechanic rather than just what hasn't been unwrapped and played yet.
True. Although I think it gets a little bit more wonky, because I feel like a lot of games nowadays tend to have multiple of mechanics, and like trying to figure out, okay, what is the primary mechanic of this game? Is it this, or is it this, or is it this? So that's where things get a little bit muddy for me as well. So
yeah, I mean, as games have developed since 2008, it's kind of crazy actually. 2008 seems so long ago in terms of like board game development and what they were doing compared to now. Like the astronomical, exponential creativity that has exploded in the board game community from 2008 until now is kind of insane. And kind of just, I guess, going off of that, Dominion was before I'd consider myself a board gamer or got super hardcore into the hobby, I'd played Magic in high school. I wouldn't consider myself a board gamer at that point. It was kind of more of a social thing. I played with my friends. And then in the dorms, someone's like, hey, do you want to play this game called Dominion? And I'm like, do I really want to step away from my computer? That was like my internal debate, right? I'm like, oh, I should probably be social once in a while. So I agreed to it, and I had like a good time. I'm like, oh, that's, you know, pretty cool. And it was actually the game that my friends used to get me to go to Gen Con. They're like, hey, did you like playing Dominion? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, you should come to like Gen Con with us and just kind of see, like, there's more games out there. And that's really what blew my world wide open. But yeah, I mean, Dominion definitely was like one of the starting games that slowly introduced me to the hobby. And it is just a pure deck builder, right? Like, at its core, it's kind of what defined deck building. So
yeah, well, it was the very first. Burns, we just played it this last week. It's considered an engine deck builder. The game features a shared market, so all the cards that anyone can ever buy are all on the table at once. You earn victory points by purchasing property cards, which are then shuffled into your deck. It was your very first time playing Dominion, and I've already purged my copy. So what are your thoughts on playing the godfather of the mechanic in 2025?
See, it's like, that's always the problem when I play deck building games, is knowing when to purge cards and when not to. And I haven't even gotten to that point where I figured out when to purge board games out of my board game collection. So I need to work on that mechanic a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this is definitively a deck building game. I can tell you that. It was a fun experience. I've had it actually out of shrink wrap too, though none of the cards were actually opened out of shrink wrap for years. I mean, I probably bought it shortly after I moved back here. So I've probably had it since 2018 and haven't opened it. I've opened it, but haven't played it. Haven't even tried to play it. So yeah, it was good. The one thing I will say is it reminded me a lot of some of the conversations we had around Final Fantasy Tactics when we talked about that on Game Club this last couple months.
So you just turned down the difficulty on Dominion?
No. Well, I played against you, so yeah, maybe I did. I don't know.
I thought I dominated.
You did. You definitely did. But no, it's one of those things where, you know, when that came out in 2008, it was, I don't know, groundbreaking. It was huge. And it was huge for a long time after that. But in the last 15 plus years, there's been a lot of things that have changed with how deck builders operate, how deck builders work. And it's just like, I kind of miss some of the things that have been added to it, and going back and playing, especially we just played the base copy. That's all I own, is just the base copy of it. And it's just like, it feels like in 2026, a very, just sort of basic experience. And it's like, there wasn't a whole lot else to sort of dig into with the game.
Yeah, deck building games and like engine building games are my favorite genre of games. And by the time that I had finally played Dominion just like a year or two ago, I had already fallen in love with other deck builders. Like I had already fallen in love with this mechanic, and like playing Dominion, it's like, oh, well, cool. Every victory point I buy makes my deck suck a little bit more. Interesting balance mechanic. So like, I'm glad that we played it. I'm glad we talked about it on the show, but time has moved on from Dominion. So like, at this point, if you want to play the Dominion, it's like, it's a historical relic from 2008, which is kind of crazy. But in 2008, I owned exactly one board game, Pictionary.
So would we say the same thing about something like Catan, which is like another one of those huge games in like the early 2000s that kind of like was the kind of gateway game that a lot of people like was like, oh, these board games can be so different. Like, would we say the same thing about Catan compared to Dominion? I mean, it's not the same type of game at all, but does that maybe still live on because there's a little bit more complexity to it, or what do we think?
I wouldn't say put Catan out to pasture, and for me, A, I haven't played it in years.
Yeah, me either.
B, I think there's a little bit more variability to how that's set up. Like, I forget exactly how it works out, but like at the beginning of the game, you choose your number, and when your number gets rolled, you get extra resources, right? Something like that?
Something like that, and then you just build the longest road. That's all you ever do. That's my strat anyway. As long as I have the longest road, I won Catan.
I think there's more variability in Catan. Maybe it's just because Phoenix hasn't played it yet, and I want to play it with her at some point. Maybe it's because I own Jon Snow Catan and haven't played it.
Oh, Game of Thrones?
Yeah, totally spaced on Game of Thrones. It's like
Jon Snow. I haven't heard of that version. But
so you just move Jon Snow between all the different environments, and he's the robber?
He's the robber. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean, I think
Robber of fun.
I think I'm in the same boat as you, Tom, though, because, I mean, I lucked out not knowing at the time that I was basically growing up with the evolution of deck building. I think that's why it holds a higher mechanic, like, portion of my board game heart. But, like, when it came to purging it, because I also purged my copy years ago, it wasn't hard, like you said, because I'd fallen in love with other evolutions of deck builders since then, and I don't have a hard time going back to it. Like, if someone were to bring their copy and they're still googly-eyed about it, because I know there are still some people that just really love the simplicity of it and what it is.
Brian's one of those. You can play with B.
Yeah, it's like, if they're like, I really want to play, I'd be like, okay, sounds good. Like, I wouldn't have any issue jumping back into it, but like, I also know there's a lot more meat on that bone that I can gnaw on if I had the opportunity, so that's where I choose to rest of my head.
I would love to see you go up against K-Tom in Dominion. Kelsey is an absolute killer, and like it would be fascinating to see like that clash of the titans of you two going at it.
Oh, maybe like 2032 we can host that tournament or something like that. So
That sounds good. From Dominion, deck builders have taken myriad different directions. Board Game Geek lists 5,000. This is not hyperbole. This is not a made-up number. Board Game Geek lists 5,289 games that use the mechanic. Mm-hmm. Now let's take a look at...
You're going to list them all for us right now, right?
Every single one. Alphabetical. There's alpha fish. There's beta fish. There's crappie.
Oh no, there's at least 100 more A's, and there'd probably be 200 that are numbers, starting numbers first. I would bet,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I was referencing a movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoosh, over my head.
Yeah. Forgetting Sarah Marshall's never far from the top of my brain.
See, I forgot.
Yeah. We're going to look at some of these different types of deck builders, and we're going to talk about some of our favorites in each one of these categories. Some deck builders are similar to Dominion. In Victory Point or Optimization deck builders, it's a straight-up race to capture victory points. Markets can either be fixed, where all players have access to all the cards at all times, like Dominion, or the markets can be variable, like having 5 face-up cards available to purchase, which are refreshed after each turn. These are the purest descendants of Dominion. Efficiency puzzles, first and foremost. Adam, do you enjoy this format for deck builders?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the formats you kind of mentioned above, and this is maybe like a cop-out answer to some, but I think they work if they're designed well. It really depends on the game and what they're trying to achieve with it, I feel like, on where those different mechanics fit into place. I don't necessarily have one that I feel like is strongly above the others, and so yeah, I mean, I enjoy an efficiency puzzle, but I don't think that there's any sort of one that's stronger than the other. I think it really depends on what the game's intent to be played is.
Yeah, I disagree. I generally like all deck builders. Even Dominion, that I just dumped all over. I like all deck builders, but this is probably my least favorite way to play it, just the straight up race to the victory points. I have found, and especially in prepping for the show, that I like having another thing to do in addition to optimizing my deck. Burns, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably less interesting to me as well. I like having multiple ways to victory. It's the anecdote, I guess, that I can use is that, the reason why I don't really like chess is that chess is all memorization and knowing moves and openings and all this stuff. And it's just I'm much more, when I play games, I want to play jazz. I don't want to play memorization of all these different things. And so I like having these multiple different ways so you can try to find your little niche to get to victory, and it's just as viable, or maybe not quite as viable, but it's still an option, as opposed to, these are our cards that are available to purchase. It's these two combinations of things that I need to do and I win. And it doesn't matter what anybody else does. And so it's stuff like that is just kind of... It's just not as interesting to me, because then it's just okay, who's played the game the most? They probably have the leg up. Or who figures out what combinations are going to be the best out of the cards that we have up. Or if you play with a completely random set of cards up in front of you, it's just this is a whole wet fart of a game because none of these cards really interplay with each other. That's great. So yeah, I don't know. I like having more meat on the bone too.
Yeah, and I guess maybe to explain my answer more, and I'll jump into the kind of my faves of this game is, I kind of see Marvel Legendary due to it coming out not too long after Dominion. I think it was a couple years, 2 to 4 years after it came out, after Dominion. But at the time, I mean, that was still a pretty pure deck builder. All you're doing is building a deck, but they added the element of some sort of it's a co-op deck builder. So you basically preset 5 heroes and you build a giant deck and they flip out the stacks, and you're just optimizing your deck, but you're doing it cooperatively against some sort of basically row of bad guys then. And I don't want to allude to too much more, but that's kind of based off of another that came out really shortly after Dominion that I'll be talking about a little bit later. But to me, that's still kind of like that formula of efficiency puzzles, even though there's like a little bit of a PvE element to it. But that was the deck builder I played probably hands down the most number of times. I mean, I'm probably in the 250 to 500 gameplays range of that game.
That's a lot of Legendary, dude.
Yeah, I played a ton because I got my family into it, I got my friends into it, and we just played all the time.
Did that one have a mechanic where you could share resources with the other players?
No, it did not. Maybe it came in one of the later expansions. I didn't have every single expansion for it.
Sure, the Firefly Legendary had a mechanic where, like, if you had, I think they were brown coats, like, you could shrug that resource off to the active player's turn.
Okay.
And then you draw a new card on your turn to replace
I think
that.
in some of the later expansions, they added, like, assist cards where you could kind of, like, assist in certain things. But, I mean, for the most part, it was just pretty much... And, like, they had different kind of, like, mechanics, but it was essentially an efficiency puzzle, whether you were trying to be efficient with, like, your purchase power or your combat power, right? Like, there's the two, basically, resources is all. And it was just kind of like, how do you achieve that thing? Are you saving citizens that are hidden under specific, like, enemy cards? Are you just straight up killing the enemy? Like, it's pretty basic in its core concepts, but that's where, like, I kind of lean back on saying it can work just fine, the efficiency puzzle, and maybe that it shined more a little bit in a co-op. I don't know.
Well, that sounds very similar to my favorite, like, optimization deck builder, Ascension. Ascension is a fantasy-themed deck builder. You're basically either fighting monsters or you are buying followers / artifacts / different offensive resources out of the main deck, and, like, based on the number of players, there's so much honor available. Like, honor is your victory point. So in a 3-player game, we might be playing to 60 honor. And once that 60 honor is claimed, like, game over. So it's like, yeah, you want to build up and, like, you want to be strategic and have these big turns, but, like, it's also a race to capture as much as you can. Every single turn, it's like, you can't waste a resource because, like, then your opponents just have that much more of an opportunity to swoop in and get that precious resource before it's got it. I kind of like that endgame specifically because it's, like, the only deck builder I can think of where once the points are gone, it's game over, man.
It's game over. I don't know. I've played Ascension once, I think, and Dominion once, so I don't really think I have a favorite.
Take a stand, Burns.
I played Dimension most recently, so there you go, because I remember playing Ascension, and since you explained it, like, I remember aspects about it, so I guess I'll say Dominion for recency bias.
Ascension is a gem. Like, I wish I could find, like, just this big box of, like, all the old sets together on, like, Facebook Marketplace or somewhere. That would be awesome. Like, I'd sleeve all those zombies, and I would just play Ascension until the end of time.
So there's this
You'd be sleeving it until the end of time.
There's this thing called crowdfunding, Tom. And there was the 15-year release that had every single expansion built within a box. That happened. It still might be like, I'll look it up and I'll let you know.
Late pledge or something.
Yeah.
If there is a late pledge, honest to God, I will do that because I love Ascension and I would love to have all the stuff. And I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, they came out with like a 15-year collector's box that...
They used to do a collector's box every single year, but I think that went away a few years ago.
Yeah, so I think they bundled it all, but we'll investigate post-show and you guys all have to follow up on the Discord channel to find out what Tom did.
Yeah. I want that. I want that very badly. Moving on from those optimization type deck builders, for some there is little allure to building an economy. Some players like Pat and apparently Burnsy need direct conflict to enjoy gaming. There are a number of other deck builders where you are essentially punching your opponent in the face. Now let's discuss tactical deck builders. Both sides have so much health and you are buying cards to directly harm your opponent and prevent harm to yourself. This model is used by games like the Star Wars deck building game and Star Realms. Birds, did you have a favorite amongst deck builders where you go head to head?
Well, so, and I guess I don't know where this game falls in between these two. Maybe it was more for the last, but this is like the only game that really falls into either of these two buckets. And it's like the only one that I can think of that I care about. But I'm going to derail the conversation and say that Quarriors is my favorite.
Disqualified.
I wish I had a more wooden sound. Like, that was kind of meaty.
I mean, it works. It works the same as other deck builders. You're just using dice instead, and you're attacking each other and things like that.
It's absolutely the same concept. It's just dice instead of cards. And I did specifically, disqualify that earlier in the conversation.
Well,
But I love Quarrier, so I'll allow it.
I was going to say, when there's multiple blocks of texts that are paragraphs and it doesn't have my initials next to it, Tom, I don't necessarily read that.
So you
until
don't
you're
read any of
through
the
it.
prompts?
I read the prompts, but I don't necessarily read. It's like, oh, this is Tom's
prompts-
setup.
The prompts for the show are literally famous, and why? We're just like picking games out of a hat.
No, I read the question right before where the initials are. I don't read the preamble where Tom specifically says, we're not talking about dice in the first sentence. And I'm like, oh, I didn't read that, but I wanted to bring up Quarriers anyway.
Yeah,
Funny.
I love Quarriers. Also, I'm recording this in a Christmas sweater. I'm wearing a llama sweater, and I am freaking hot, man. Like, I am sweating. This is the most uncomfortable I've been for a podcast in ages, and like, it's too tight for me to pull the sleeves up, and so I'm just like suffering.
And you could change.
Well,
You're in your house.
We'll let
Yeah,
listeners
but this
know
is
when
festive.
We'll let listeners know when he rips it off.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I thought Quarriers was going to be a point for that. So, Adam, I think you have an interesting one listed here. What do you think is your favorite for like tactical deck
Yeah,
builders?
I mean, so I'm thinking of I was trying to go back to kind of like the pure, because I mean, to be honest, foreshadowing on what we're to talk, a lot of my favorite deck builders, like I said, that easily got rid of some of these kind of, I'll call them old school style games, is a mix of the mechanic, right? So for this list, I put down Thunderstone, which is more PvE, that I was kind of alluding to with Marvel Legendary. It's kind of very similar. That's why I added also Star Wars deck building that you mentioned. And technically, you're the one that introduced me to that game, and I really enjoyed it, and I had a good time with it.
It's great, and like the expansion is also great. The expansion is Separatists versus Galactic Republic, and it's rad.
Yeah, and I'm not like a big Star Wars fan, so that really speaks to the game itself.
Yeah, says the guy in a Boba Fett sweatshirt.
It's
I'm
festive.
a scum and villainy hat.
It's festive. So yeah, I mean, I kind of felt guilty putting down Thunderstone, because I don't know if it's the exact thing, but like, it's a good game in my opinion.
I don't think it's a great fit for this category, because like it's also kind of a race to the victory points. Like eventually the Thunderstone Bear is going to come out, and like you'll take him down, and then you count up your victory points. But I'll also allow it because Thunderstone is like top 5 favorite game for me, and it is my favorite deck builder, and it's the reason I hate Dominion, frankly, because like Dominion, you're just buying the properties, you put them in your deck, and then your hands stink in future turns. Great. In Thunderstone, you're buying heroes, you're buying villagers from the town who could be anything from mercenaries to town guards to different people with weird jobs to weapons and light sources. There's a mechanic where the deeper you go into the dungeon, there's 3 levels to the dungeon, and each level you go down, you need more light or you're suffering a penalty to try to fight them. So if you have like 10 fighting power, doesn't matter, you can kill whatever you want in the dungeon. But if you only have like 4 fighting power and you want to fight that monster in the second spot, if you don't have the light, you can't do it. And so I think that's really interesting, because you have to balance your light. The items all have weight, and so if like your rogue isn't strong enough to carry the hammer that you have in your hand at the same time, your weapon's just worthless, which sucks, but it's like another thing that you have to consider. So like I think Thunderstone is just a gem of a game, and it's one of my favorite deck builders.
Yeah, and there's like 3 versions of it, because there's the original Thunderstone, and then there's, I think, the Thunderstone Advance series.
Yeah, Thunderstone Advance is the one that I have.
And then now there's
Thunderstone
Quest is the newest one, I believe. So
Yeah,
And isn't there like Thunderstone too?
that's an AC/DC song, I believe.
Okay. Thunderstruck.
But if you're looking for like deck builders where you're directly fighting an opponent, I really enjoyed Hero Realms, which is similar to Star Realms. It comes in a small box. It's easy to jump into. There's 4 factions of cards that you're buying from. And what's unique about Hero Realms and Star Realms is that those factions give you bonus abilities. So if you have in Star Realms, one of the factions is the Blob faction. They're the green cards. And if you have 2 cards in your hand from the Blob faction, you'll get an extra ability on each one of those cards. And if you have any of those synergies, you keep getting those extra abilities. And I just love that because it makes specializing in like a class just more valuable. So I think that both Hero Realms, Star Realms are awesome, and the Star Wars deck building game is another one of my favorites, specifically for 2 players. We've got plenty more to dive into with our deck building show, but first, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Premier Health. This episode is brought to you by Premier Health, home to Doctors Brian and Kelsey Camille, 2 chiropractors who know a thing or two about keeping your body aligned, whether you're at the table or out in the world.
Just like in a great deck building game, your health is all about making the right choices turn after turn. And at Premier Health, they specialize in everything from sports injuries to accident recovery to help you build a stronger, healthier neck, one adjustment at a time.
So if your back feels like it's been shuffled one too many times, or you're ready to upgrade your health, visit premierhealthmn.com and schedule your next move.
Premier Health, because the best strategy is feeling your best. Check out their website at premierhealthmn.com. That's premierhealthmn as in Minnesota.com.
For some reason, after we did that, "Don't steal home without it" popped into my head for Major League.
It's a little cheesy, but, it's a little different.
Yeah, it works.
A lot of great movie references in the show. We're very topical. We're like, what's his name that did Monday Night Football for one season?
Very topical.
Yeah.
Dennis Miller.
Dennis Miller. I was thinking Dennis Leary, but I'm like, it's not Dennis
Not
Leary.
Dennis Leary.
No.
No, Dennis Miller. Dennis Miller also very topical.
Yeah.
Hasn't been relevant for about 2 decades now.
King of references.
Yeah. He was.
Next, let's discuss an evolution of the deck building concept. Some games blend a core deck building mechanic with other mechanics to create interesting hybrids. Clank, for example, is a deck builder at its heart, but one of the resources you are managing is movement, so you're also navigating a dungeon, trying to scoop up the most treasure, and trying to escape alive.
And not make too much noise.
Yeah, and not have Burns tattle on you every freaking turn.
Yes.
Thunderstone Advance mixes deck building with dungeon crawling. Each turn you draw your hand and you decide whether you're going to fight a monster in the dungeon or if you're going to town to buy a new card. For Glory has you squaring off 1 versus 1 against an opponent in gladiatorial battles. One phase of the game has you buying cards to boost your economy or buy gladiators or tactics. Then at intervals you pitch your decks against each other in tactical combat. So Adam, what's your favorite type of hybrid game?
Yeah, so I was a big fan, maybe a minority in that camp, but I liked the Clank in space.
I have not played it. The original Clank is... The first time I played it was at the cabin earlier this month, and then Brent and I played it a second time. So, I played it twice, and man, I want to play it, every day forever for the rest of my life.
So, the sci-fi puns in that are fantastic. And I love it for the theme, but my biggest gripe with the Clank game is the set map. And that's where Clank Catacombs, I haven't played it yet, but I'm putting it as my favorite because I love the Clank system. But Clank Catacombs actually is a tile flipping as you're exploring.
So it's like Nemesis.
It's a randomized map then. So you can't count on that sure path every single time.
And I will say that unequivocally, Clank has the best noise mechanic in a board game. Hands down. Nemesis can suck it.
I don't know. I would say Taboo has the best noise mechanic because it came with the little buzzer thing. And then you would just use that.
It's the original noise mechanic.
Exactly. You would just use that all the time. It would live outside the box because you would just run around the house and just brr, brr.
Yeah. So Clank Catacombs, definitely a great one. Dune Imperium is awesome. And you know, when you said fighting mechanic, that's the one that actually kind of came to my mind more. There's this whole... Dune Imperium has deck building within it, but then there's also this whole battle, basically square on the board, and that's kind of a mix of worker placement with deck building, right? But... And then ironically, if we're hitting the narrative on top of it, and I know you said what's your favorite, but here's 3 of mine. I'm going to go back to Tainted Grail, because Tainted Grail actually, you're building your combat and also political decks at the same time as you're leveling up. So you have 2 different decks on each, every player has 2 different decks that you're building throughout that narrative that you can upgrade. And it's literally one of the level up options. It's do I want to do XYZ and improve my stats, or do I want to grab more cards for my deck? And it's kind of this cool balance of it's probably not the first deck builder that comes to mind when you're saying deck building, but it's a cool spin on leveling up a character to have a deck as part of that element as well. So
yeah, and most of the games that we have talked about and we'll talk about on the show, it's something you sit down and play once. You play your game of Clank, you play your game of Thunderstone Advance, you play your game of Star Wars Deck Builder or whatever, and then you either box it up or you play it again and then you move on with your life. But Tainted Grail is more of a lifestyle game.
It's a campaign game, right? And so it's you're going to be building your deck for a while there. But I go back to it every time because I just really, really like it as a game and theme, and I just really like how they designed that game. So
it's phenomenal. And I desperately want to go back to it too. The thing is, when I want to play it, I want hours. It's the problem I run into with my favorite video games. It's you can't just pull it out quick and play for a half hour and an hour.
Right.
It's you got to be able to sit and think and read the big chunks of story and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to break things up. And it is an absolute masterpiece of a game from the first section that I played. I still haven't figured out how to build a Minear, which is somewhat limiting. But that is a game where it's not a game that works after bedtime.
No, it's
right now. So it's
it's tough. It's definitely something that it's turned into a solo game for me. But it's. Gosh, I'm just it's bringing back memories. You haven't even hit some of the oh crap moments.
I want to so bad.
Yeah,
I climbed a statue. I got pricked by a thing. I looked for food.
Yeah,
a big guardian stood right where I needed to be.
Yeah,
that's one session.
There's so many. I haven't even scratched the surface on that game, and there's so many crazy moments. You're what is going on? And you have to sit there and just think about it a little bit. And so I'm digressing into a campaign game. We're talking about deck builders, but there's a cool deck building element that is kind of unique in my opinion. I don't know. I'm sure other games have done that. Because I haven't played.
Tainted Grail is probably the only one.
Well, I haven't played any of the there's a Clank Legacy game. I haven't played any of those or anything like that. But those are my kind of top three would be Clank, Dune, and Tainted Grail. So
Bernsey?
Dune Imperium, I think, is my favorite. It's the one that I can think of that fits into this realm that I've played the most. I've probably played it 5 or 6 times. And so, it's just the mixture of, when games have different aspects of them that work together, right? So you have your deck building mechanic along with the worker placement mechanic. And kind of area control a little bit, because there's a little bit of that feel to it with worker placement too. I just love games where all those elements kind of synergize together. And then with some of the expansions that they've come out with different added abilities that you get, that you can sort of queue into also. It's so good. And then determining which track to go up on of the 4 different factions too, and which ones are going to be best for your leader and all of that. I think Dune Imperium is a phenomenal game with deck building kind of at its core. I also say though, I played. Oh, go ahead.
You know what I love in a game? I love a game that does something that no other game does. And thinking about all the deck builders that I played leading up to this game, For Glory does something that none of the rest of them does. And I'm really glad that you brought this over and shared that experience with me, because For Glory, I talked about how is this gladiatorial thing, right? Mm-hmm. There's 3 arenas. It's designed to be a 1v1 experience. And so we're both buying gladiators. We're both buying tactics. We're putting our gladiators into different arenas to try to get the glory at that arena. But the mechanic in that game that blew me away, that still has me thinking, you have an ability to buy these tactic cards, and they're only useful in the fights. And you'll draw a hand of cards before you go into the fights, and if you have tactics, you can use them. If you don't have tactics, tough cookies, you're going to get pummeled. But it has a mechanic where when you draw those in other turns, you can put them face down next to your player mat and put them in reserve. So that when you need them, you can summon them back. But it's not just for free. You can't buy 57 tactics cards, lay them all out, because when you want them, you're going to have 1 gold coin on hand for each card, and you have to buy the whole stack at once. And I thought that was such an interesting thing to try to balance. It's I know these tactics are good. I've got some great cards in there. Oh, good, it's in my hand. I put it down. Can I afford to put another tactic card down there? Do I just have to hope something comes up in the draw? And I really loved that mechanic. And out of all the games that we've talked about, I can't think of another one where you're reserving specific cards for when they can be best applied.
Yeah, and that's neat too, because one of the tricky things about deck building games is, am I actually going to get the right combination of cards together to pull some of this off? So having a mechanism to manipulate that, you still have to plan for it, and you have to have the resources available to use it, is cool, because then it allows you to sort of succeed at some of those things, and it gives you a mitigation path, which can be difficult when randomness is always at play. I do think that that's really awesome. Also played Clank for the first time when we were prepping for the podcast, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. The one thing I will say about For Glory is, and it's just probably those things where I just need to play it more often, and then this wouldn't be a problem. But there's enough added rules onto it, because like with deck building games, they're usually pretty straightforward. The only rules that you really need to pay attention to is like what's on the cards, like anything that's sort of on the cards that is explaining a rule or whatever. And with For Glory, there's a lot of extra rules to just how some of the different things work that are a little clunky to keep in mind and remember how that works when you're playing the game once a year, once every 2 years or something like that. Which, you know, with having a bunch of different board games and not as much time to play with a bunch of different people, you know, that's just the reality, is that you're not always going to be able to play a game every couple months and have those rules fresh on the top of your head. So that would be the one thing that makes that game a little more tricky, I would say. But it is fun.
Yeah, it was a gem. My favorites from this category, Thunderstone Advance and Clank. They're both absolute gems of games. So here's a quick aside for you guys. Do you think that we're better off now being older and having resources to buy hundreds of games but not having like the time and the energy to play them regularly? Or do you think we were better off when we were dumb kids? Granted, we were dumb kids in different generations with like 3 games, but you could get together with your buddies for a weekend and play the crap out of those 3 games.
Well, the other caveat to that is it's like you'd have these 3 games that are cool and fun to play, and then whenever you have your family together, all they want to play is frickin' Monopoly again. So there was that aspect to growing up too. Yeah, that is the conundrum. You get older, you have money to buy things, but you don't have as much time to actually enjoy those things.
There's so many cool games, man. Yep. And it's like, you know, Phoenix and I are getting into a good routine now, and like it helps when like we're at a cabin or at a hotel or something, because then like we don't have chores to do. We don't have to do laundry. We don't have to do the dishes. We don't have like all the stuff that we normally do after bedtime. It's just like, oh, cool. I can just hang out with my person for a little bit and play Sea Salt and Paper. Rock on.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm definitely in that phase of
money in
no time. I'm in a dark, scary place, but that's what children do to you. No, they're great.
Mostly great. There's a lot of positives.
They're going to be great once they're nerds like Dad. So that's, it seems like Emily's headed that direction. So she seems to like to sit down and play, or I was going through and I had some spare time. So I was trying to organize some of my board games for recently this last week. And she wanted to sit there and help punch games out. So I'm hoping that, you know, give it a couple years and let the job level out a little bit, hopefully, and let the kids get a little bit older where the independence is a little bit more there, or wanting to game with Dad, and maybe the like 20 lifestyle games that I have sitting on my shelves maybe a couple can get used before I, you know, croak. So
here's open. We've talked about a lot of great options to break out with your gaming buddies, but what if you want to bring in a spouse, a partner, or a friend who doesn't play a lot of games? Or another Sid Logic. Next, we'll discuss cooperative, narrative deck builders. These are a great option for onboarding new players. You guys are giggling and it's very distracting, but I'm going to play it through. Players are all on a team, building their individual decks to overcome obstacles. This mechanic is used in popular games like the Legendary series, Harry Potter, and Aang's Destiny, the Avatar deck building game. So, Bernsey, do you have a favor within, like, the... Why are you laughing? This is just my regular face.
No, it's not you, it's me, Tom.
Oh, you realize that you've never played a deck builder before? You Brian this one? You, looked at the cover of a deck builder and it's like, I'm good.
No, it's just like, I feel like so many of these, I have just these off-the-wall, wonky kind of picks that somehow fit, but don't necessarily. And so, you know...
Well, you brought dice to a deck builder.
I did, and so now it's like, you know, the caveat that I wrote down, this isn't primarily a deck building game, but it uses deck building mechanics for the attack modifier decks, so I'll say Gloomhaven Frosthaven, because it's a co-op campaign game that you can play with people.
So do you have, a contract with Childress where you have to, mention his games every episode?
Yeah, it's... I guess I do, because it does come up. Not just board gaming episodes either, but I mean, you know, when it is the game series that I have probably, aside from Final Fantasy XIV, it's probably the most I've put into a game period between Gloomhaven and Frosthaven with our regular group that we play through with. And so But I really like the deck building mechanic that's in there. It's sort of like what you're talking about with Tainted Grail. It's more of a slow burn. It's not like you're playing deck building every single time,
right?
But it's the attack modifier deck within there, because it starts off, you just have basically you have a base set of modifiers. So you'll have 1 + 2, you'll have 1 - 2, you'll have 1 × 2, you'll have 1 miss, you'll have a bunch of +1s and a bunch of -1s and a bunch of 0s. But as you level up as a character and as you get perks, you're able to replace those cards with specific abilities for your character class. And you kind of choose which ones to prioritize first. And different characters are going to sort of have different ways that modifier deck gets edited. And so, for instance, some character classes are going to be really paring down the amount of modifier cards and having a lot of you're having very few cards, but they'll all do something important, right? Or something good. So most of the time you're actually hitting harder and doing some sort of special ability along with it. But you have fewer cards, right? So there's a little bit higher chance that you're going to get that miss, or you're going to get that -2 if it doesn't get whittled out of your deck. But then there's other ones where you're really just adding a bunch of cards to it, and they have a lot of cards that it's sort of like, I guess the way to put it would be a yes and card. And so it's you do this and you flip another card to see what else happens. And so sometimes you can chain like 3 or 4 of those together in one attack, which is always a bit nerve-wracking, because it does happen where the miss pops up at the end of all of that, and you're like, well, all that stuff was for nothing, apparently. But yeah, that's just such a really cool mechanic. That's that one aspect of the game. And so I don't know, I really enjoy that as a mechanic, and so that's why I would say that this game qualifies for that. That, and I don't really think I've played too many other co-op deck building games. So
I'd maybe look at that more as like a deck construction type thing.
Deck construction is going to be your actual ability cards that you're playing on every turn.
So they have that too.
They have that too. This is the game with everything, Tom.
And it's like the best co-op there is. All right.
Cephalofairgames.com. Get your copy today.
/Burns, because I get a cut of that.
Get 10% off and support my channel.
Yeah. Let me try a crack at a real answer for this one. So I've already mentioned the Marvel Legendary, so obviously I'm a fan of the Legendary series, but I wanted to really hone in on the other game I've played a lot and introduced very new gamers, like young kids to just parents who are not gamers but want to try to connect on some level with their kids. And at the time it was the Harry Potter Deckbuilder, or it's Harry Potter Hogwarts Battles specifically. And they've reskinned that into, I believe, a Toy Story one now. So now it's probably even more kid-friendly than... I mean, not that Harry Potter's not kid-friendly, but we'll leave that there.
Hey, man, those later years get dark.
Yeah, so...
I was going to say, there's that one card that can pop up and you have to burn all the cards.
Yeah.
Toy Story 3 ending. Spoiler, sorry.
Yeah, so... But yeah, like, I think that one's...
Tell us a little bit about Harry Potter, how Harry Potter
Yeah,
works.
so, like, Harry Potter progresses, like, very thematically over the years, right? So year one, you're like that fresh green student that lands at Hogwarts, and it is like a Dominion-style basics deck builder game. Like, when I played it the very first time, I'm like, oh, this is going to be rough if this is all 7 years. But they literally build from, like, year one is what I would consider your basic, like, kind of Dominion deck builder. And then by the time you hit year 7, it's like you've got all these different mechanics that have now been introduced. You've got player powers. You have, like, having to basically, like, destroy certain puzzles to, like, get to a bad guy before you can, get them, and the Horcruxes and things like that. And so it's like, it just evolves so nicely once you hit year 7.
That sounds interesting, and I think Aang's Destiny, the Avatar deck building game, follows a similar path. It's broken up into 7 different segments or 7 different games. So, like, for your first session, you pop open packet 1, and it's very basic. It's like deck builders for babies, man. It's like every card is like, oh, +1 attack power, +1 buying power. Great. This is very rote. It's like, I hope it gets better than this. We only played the first one so far, but it does say specifically in the rules that if you're experienced with deck builders, the first 2 scenarios are going to be very low key. So hearing what Harry Potter does by the end, I have a lot of optimism for the Avatar deck building game because I do love the IP, and I hope that it's a very similar experience. Because at least the first chapter very faithfully recreates the Avatar's journey in a very boring way where you're buying cards.
Sounds like a favorite to me.
I've never heard of Aang's Destiny until you put it in the show notes, and it's definitely very interesting in terms of like, curious to look at it to see, because I also love the Avatar world and it's got like a good IP, I feel like, to build games around.
And killer box art.
Yeah.
It's very striking.
Yeah, and I guess, not trying to divulge too far from that one, but like another like kind of similar but different, I guess, co-op, which is kind of more of a meatier deck builder, would be like Aeon's End. I've always been super interested in because
and we talked about that on one of our New Year's New Games shows.
Nope. So there's Aeon's
Trespass Odyssey,
and there's Aeon's End.
I had my Aeons all
crossed. So it's not. I'm not pulling a Joe here and trying to say like, oh yeah, this like campaign lifestyle game that's a box the size of my house is. No, I'm kidding, Joe. But
it's like
what my favorite deck builder is?
Like that box size.
Yeah.
My favorite deck builder is Legos.
You're literally building, and you could make it in the form of a deck.
It is a deck builder, but it's a co-op like boss battler is kind of how it is. And the gaming group in Iowa that went to school with my wife.
Yeah, my man Ryan. I can't remember Ryan.
Ryan. There's Ryan Young, Ryan Tyrrell.
One of the Ryans is my guy.
Yep, and so they've played through multiple campaigns of that one. Because there are like campaign versions of it as well. They have like a lot of iterations of it, but more recently they came out with something called Astro Knights, which is like a more streamlined version. They're like, if you're a big Aeon's End player, this might be too simple for you, but like it's got a little bit meat on the bones, but it seems like a good one to introduce to families. I was really trying to hone in on that, like kind of can play with younger ages, older ages type style of games that I feel like I'm just like rubbing salt in the wound on Joe.
All ages can play Frosthaven. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
With a Tom Brady level quarterback. I love Frosthaven, FYI, so you can get my affiliate link too. But I was just trying to like think of like those like Harry Potter is probably, or that style. I'm sure there's Toy Story, and it sounds like Aang's is the same way. In my opinion, is the best way to introduce deck builders.
Well, it's so nice that it's iterative and like super to give those building blocks.
Yeah. It's like, don't overcomplicate it, because at the core, deck building's pretty easy, right? But then once you layer some new mechanics on it, it can get complicated fast. So like if you just strip those down within the same game and build up to it, it's a decent way to get people kind of thinking outside of the box more when it comes to board games if they're not a board gamer.
Yeah, another one I wanted to bring up was Firefly Legendary. We played that for the Firefly show. It was really interesting. You could play any of the main cast members from Firefly. So I think there's 8 different characters. You choose your avatar's deck. I think you choose a support character, and you take their deck and you shuffle it in with yours. And then the characters that don't get chosen are like the deck of cards that you can buy. Mm-hmm. It had some interesting synergies between characters, and it very faithfully followed the show with the different bad guys you were fighting, the different objectives that you were trying to take down. What I found challenging with that game, so perfect choice for my favorites, is just it seemed like there are specific combos that would either work or not work given the scenario, and like you don't know until you go in and get your butt kicked, and that's not like the best way to play a game. But on the flip side, like my brother played it with us. Jake had never played a deck building game before, hasn't played one since, but he had a lot of fun with it, and like we were able to give him the tools to succeed, and he's like, oh well, this character looks cool, I'll do this thing, and like we had a good time playing it together, even though I thought it was a kind of up and down experience.
Did he say you can't take the sky from me, Tom?
I don't think that he said that.
Okay.
Thinking about all of the different types of deck builders that we've played and discussed on the show, Adam, do you prefer engine like optimization or more tactical deck builders?
Yeah, so I know I was like being wishy-washy, and I still have a little bit of wishy-washy, but Tom, I try to read all of the notes you put in the show notes.
I appreciate that.
So I knew this question was coming. I appreciate both, but I lean more tactical. If you look at the 3 that I mentioned of my favorite deck builders of the hybrids, those are my favorite deck builders. Clank, Dune Imperium, Tainted Grail, they're all very tactical. And so I do lean that tactical way more than the traditional kind of Dominion way. So
Samesies, Burnsy?
Yeah, I mean, tactical would be what I would choose as well. But the thing I wanted to say here is that my preference overall is much more so that I would much rather play a game that has deck building and something else. So kind of like Adam was saying, like Dune Imperium, where it has other elements that you're also doing on top of the deck building, because it just makes it that much more interesting experience. And The Witcher Old World also is something that I'll be delving into a little bit more as we talk about things. It just having that as one of those mechanics and seeing how that stuff plays together, I think is so much more interesting than whether it's just tactical or whether it's one of the more engine building types of things. And so yeah, so that's kind of what I would say though, is I'd still lean tactical.
Yeah, I'm totally with you with general gaming, but for travel, like a tactical head versus head in a small box could be great. Like your Star Realms, your Star Wars deck builder, like something that is very easy to set up, very easy to tear down, and that you can just like play after the kids go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of value in my collection for something like that. Deck builders can accommodate many different player counts. So, Burnsy, I'll turn to you on this one. Do you prefer large-scale games like an epic 6-player Showdown and Thunderstone Advance, or a more focused 2-player experience like Star Realms?
They each have their like places, right? The problem that you always have with larger player counts is that, and this isn't just specific to deck builders, it's just board games in general, is that the more players you have, the longer the game takes overall.
And what if one of those players is Casey?
Well, and then it takes even longer, and then there's just more downtime in between turns. And nothing kills a gaming experience more than, having an age between when you do something and when you go again. And nothing then grinds someone's gears more than when somebody else had that same amount of time in between their turns and then they can't think about what they were going to do.
Want to name anyone specifically?
No, I'm
Mr.
just saying,
Smiley?
it happens from time to time. And so that is the thing that stinks about having like higher player counts. And so picking up something that goes really quick, like when we played Star Realms, like
we
it's
played
nice
4 games in like 4.5 hours with our 2-player deck builder night.
Yeah. Well, and then 3-player playing Clank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think having a smaller player count is nice, but having games that are versatile enough to play at a larger player count, I think is also helpful. One really interesting thing about Dune Imperium, and you have to I can't remember what the name of the expansion is for Dune Imperium. It can also be a standalone piece, but that's what actually adds the ability to play 5 or 6 players. And it's a really interesting mechanic because the 2 extra players aren't actually... They work very differently. So one of them, you're playing as the Emperor, and you're more of like a support for 2 of the other characters. So it ends up being like a 3v3 game as opposed to like 1v1v1v1v1v1.
So it's basically Memoir 44.
I mean, it's a very different game than that for sure. But it's super interesting how it works in that, the concern we had, we've played it once. I can't remember if we played with 5 or 6 players, but it was interesting because, I asked afterwards Chewy if it still felt like it was interesting, even though he didn't necessarily have things on the table as much. And he said that there was still a lot of different things that he could do on his turn to sort of push things in the direction that he wanted it to go. And so that still made it interesting. And so I think it's cool when games come up with ways to approach larger player counts in a slightly different way that doesn't just make it 2 extra players, that adds another, 30 minutes per player to the game.
I think that's fascinating because I can't think of another deck building game that we've either discussed or that even exists where there's an asymmetrical element. Because like generally in a deck builder, that's like the hook of it. We all start with the same crappy deck, and like who can rise to the top? Who can be the most efficient to get there? Dune Imperium sounds really interesting with those extra players doing something different.
Yeah, it's really neat. And I think each of your leaders has specific abilities, too, that are unique to them. And so there is a little bit more asymmetry to that game as a whole also, which makes it interesting.
Yeah, that's almost a whole nother can of worms itself, because I think you're referring to Dune Imperium Uprising.
Yes.
And then it's kind of like a 1.5 reinvention of, I think, Dune Imperium, because like there's a big debate on, is Dune Imperium base game with the base expansions better than Dune Imperium Uprising with Bloodlines, which is the newest expansion, kind of made more for Uprising. And there's like a big... I haven't played Uprising yet. It sounds interesting, but like from what I've read, it's like it's kind of a little bit more chaotic than the original, and some people like that, and some people like the more tactical of the original Dune Imperium. So I think both are great games, but like, I mean, we could sit there and talk all day about just those two games probably, but I mean, it's...
Yeah, we got all night. Go nuts, guys.
Yeah.
Adam, what's your optimal player count for Deckbuilders?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't have 6 friends, so that's
Amen,
great.
brother.
And then I don't trust my other 2 basically sitting at the table, to be alone with them. So yeah, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. So no, I like everything Joe said. Just is like, when you get those higher player count games, if there's not some sort of efficiency model where there's simultaneously something or whatever, people aren't on top of their game, those big games, like, I just dread it. And so, like, I feel like the sweet spot for a lot of what I'm in the mood for is, like, 3 and 4 player games. So I am, like, right in the middle. I mean, 2-player games, fantastic. Like, I'm a solo board gamer as well. So, like, heck, even one-player games are great in my opinion, but like, I don't mind that like intimate 1 or 2-player games, because you can be intimate with yourself. But like
that's solo.
Oh dang it! Okay, I gotta rework my at-home setup.
And solo.
So, but no, like, I mean, if I had like the optimal time, I get to pick whatever I want. I think I'm in that 3 to 4 player range. I think a lot of games kind of sing really well at that, and the more the merrier, but I don't want to be doing the same thing all day long unless I know I'm signing up for that. So
yeah, I like big 6-player games because like it's a social thing for me, and like I do love that element of it, although it drives me crazy with the deep think and the people who aren't using their time efficiently. The phase of life that I'm in right now, though, realistically, I like things that I can play optimally with Phoenix. So, like, those games designed specifically for 2 players are really where I'm at right now. Like, I love those experiences, and I love that there's so many good ones. Here's a crazy idea that I had recently. Like, I've been thinking about an idea for a TomCon for the last couple of years, and I finally have the hook for my TomCon. The main thing at it will be a Thunderstone Advanced Championship. I have enough copies of Thunderstone Advanced, or enough expansions. We could run 3 games simultaneously at 6 players apiece. Top 3 players move on. I just love the idea of having a Thunderstone Advanced tournament.
Yeah,
Burns, you're grimacing.
No, I'm not grimacing. It would be interesting. I mean, it always is fun trying to turn something into a tournament that maybe isn't typically lend itself that way. So I don't know. I'd be up for that.
I mean,
I'd probably suck at it, but
look into the World Series of Board Gaming, right? Because
Yes.
they take just like normal board games and make it a tournament somehow.
Yep.
So
yeah, they have that. They have events for a lot of those at Adepticon as qualifiers for the World Series. So I've thought about it, but it's like, I know I would be going up against like the sweatiest of sweatiest board game players that like...
Hey, you're with the sweatiest of podcast hosts right now, dude.
No, but you're like the physically sweaty. Not like from a game approach, like, I'm going to find every little way to optimize a way out of this, and then any little thing that you do, I'm going to rules lawyer it to heck, even if it's not wrong. That's the thing I always worry about whenever you get into like competitive things like that. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll jump into that, but...
Yeah, thanks for ruining everything, toxic nerds. No toxicity at TomCom.
Yeah.
Quick clarification, it's 3 copies of the game. Top 2 would move on from each of the 3 games, and you'd play one 6-player game.
Yeah, I was going to say, 9-player game would be a little difficult.
Yeah, that'd be silly.
House rules.
Yeah.
House rules, Tom wins. Suck it, friends. Within deck builders, do you prefer fixed markets like in Dominion, or semi-random markets like in Ascension, or fully chaotic draws of which I have no example? The joke hits just the same the second time, right? I cut all that out. Nobody knows what happened.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. They each have their positives and drawbacks. So for fixed markets, everyone has the chance to get whichever items they want when they want it, right? Unless like that stack sells out or whatever,
Like,
which
that's
is
fair.
part of it. But yeah, it's like you have the ability to come up with what your strategy is and try to implement it, right? The drawback though is that those games, as I talked about before, tend to have very specific combinations that like these are the combinations you want to go with, and it's a very kind of zero-sum game of this is the best way to do this. It's like this or this, and if you don't do that, you're not even playing, right? And so that's the one drawback to that. Whereas
So it sounds like those suck.
well, with semi-random, if a good card gets flipped up after your turn, there's no chance that that's going to come back around to you. Like, you don't have the opportunity to get that card. Now, granted, there's usually multiple cards that are going to, like, make or break things. But I know we ran into that with For Glory, where it was, like, early on, there was a few different cards that came up that it's like they were right for your turn, and then you bought those, like, coin cards that were worth a lot. And it was just like, I just fell behind on the economy game early on, and it made it really hard for me to catch up.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. One game that I want to call out for how they combat that specific example with the semi-randomness, the Star Wars deck building game has a really cool mechanic. Each side is playing a faction, whether you're the Rebels or the Imperials or the Separatists or the Galactic Republic. You have cards that are specific for your faction. The deck that you're drawing from is mix of both factions, but like if I'm playing the Rebels, I can only buy the Rebel cards or a handful of neutral cards. I can assassinate your good cards from your side, but generally speaking, I only have access to, as the Rebels, Han, Luke, Leia, the Millennium Falcon, all the iconic Rebel troopers and ships. The Imperial player would be able to get Darth Vader, the Admirals, the Star Destroyers, and I think that's a really elegant way that they solve that semi-randomness conundrum.
Yeah, the only problem with that, though, is, because I know we've run into that a couple of times, where if, say, you have the 7 cards that come up, and 5 of them are for the other faction, that then gets a little difficult to do things. Now, granted, a lot of the times there's also like wipe mechanics where it's like I can do something to trigger wiping those and drawing 7 more cards out or something like that. That helps to combat that. But that's also the thing that gets tricky with those random draws, is that you'll get like stacks of cards, and it's just like, well, none of this really works. So yeah, I know. I think there's drawbacks to each one of them. I would probably still say semi-random because I like jazz more than memorization. So
I like the semi-random because I think it plays to one of my strengths that I perceive of myself. Like, I can scan information and I can determine what I think is the best option, and I am comfortable shooting my shot at that point. Like, I feel like I can look at the slate of cards on the table, especially if they're constantly changing. It's like, this is what fits with what I'm doing. I'm going to buy that card and we are going to see what happens.
I realized that you gave a lot of this or that questions in this dialogue here, and I always lead with, I don't have a preference, but this one's better.
This is what I like, yeah.
So
and everyone who doesn't like it is a big dumb idiot.
So I'd have to say that I do lean towards the semi-random markets as well in this category, just kind of like looking at some of my favorites. But what I want to digress on this conversation is the pure chaos example that you don't have. I do have one, I feel like, and that would be Millennium Blades.
We've talked about that on the show. I struggle to remember which one it is.
Yeah,
is this the one where you're buying like the trading card packs?
Yeah, so it's the
It's
the TCG simulator basically. But why I say it's pure chaos is just like a legendary game, or even like, where you like Marvel Legendary, where you're like, okay, I'm going to pick 5 heroes, and they're going to all be shuffled together, and those decks are those cards are coming out, or whatever. Like, you're shuffling that deck. Okay, so in setup, you do the same thing with Millennium Blades, right? So you're shuffling basically card packs, thematic card packs, but then when they come out, they're face down. So you're buying card packs that you don't actually know what card you're buying. you have an idea because the card packs show like, oh, it could be any number of these different elements or type of card. But at the end of the day, you're literally doing what TCG's basic simulate is. You're buying just a whole bunch of packs, hoping for a good card or two that you can build a deck around, and then you're literally building like a TCG deck within the game. So it's weird because like I don't consider TCG like that's a deck construction or whatever. It's like a different category. But thinking about it in the format in which Millennium Blades implements it, it is kind of like a deck builder because you're building the deck within the game. And then the chaos part is that whole buying of packs is timed. Like it's a real-time game. It's one of the few real-time games that I actually have enjoyed. And it is just pure chaos because you can sell them, so then you can actually see what the card is when people sell to the market, the used market. You're buying packs just like mad, and people are all reaching for stuff, and something flips up, and someone else buys it, and you curse at your friend across the table. And it is just pure chaos, but it's a ton of fun, I think.
So are you all for? I just thought like an interesting way to play that game, though I don't know how well it would work or not. You all familiar with Rip and Ship? Like what that is?
Nope.
So Rip and Ship is like a streaming meta where basically it's, businesses, usually it's card game stores or whatever, where and it's both for sports and also like TCGs, where you'll have people at home will buy packs from them, and then they rip them on the air and show all the cards, and especially focusing on the rares and everything like that. And then they ship them to you, basically, is how it works. But the content to get people to watch is that you're ripping them on the air so you can get, oh, look, we found the rarest card, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then they have their shorts that they can put on YouTube and TikTok and all that stuff. But you play Millennium Blades, but everybody has to be streaming, and then they mimic the cards that they get as Rip and Ship, and so it's like, oh, what did I get here? And you flip the card over, it's like, oh my god!
So you literally want to add more chaos.
Yes.
So the already
yes.
are like it's what 7 minutes.
Yep. So now it's like you gotta do all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it accommodates up to 6 players. If I'm remembering correctly,
we had 4 when we played it, but I couldn't remember if it goes. It probably could go higher. I mean, It seems like it would make sense, but yeah.
So I mean, it was just like I'm gonna look it up here quick.
That's a fun game.
Holy man, like 2 to 5, so you can go up to 5, but you have 5 people trying to literally buy TCG cards like it within the game and sell all at the same time.
Yeah,
and everyone's throwing money everywhere, and they're supposed to be in like 2 piles. And like everyone's just
piles get pretty spread out,
right? So everyone's just like pure chaos. And then the cool thing is the game is over 3 rounds, and at the end of each round, you're literally playing a TCG tournament in the game way, for victory points at the end of that round. So like, who built the best deck is like, it's just this kind of like crazy concept. And I would say it's literally the game that like killed all TCGs for me, because I'm like, why would I ever buy a TCG when I have this? and it's just like you want to do a draft? Come over and play Millennium Blades. I'll show you a real fun time. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a good one, but it doesn't fit, I think, in the normal deck building mechanics. So.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we spent so much time on it.
Well, no, I mean, it is a deck builder. Like, it is, but, like, it's not one that I without someone owning it and, like, running it for you, it would be really hard for, like, new people to pick up. But, like, man, does it sing when you play it. Because it is just, I don't know anyone who didn't have a good time, whether you're getting your butt kicked or you're the one kicking butt. So, it's just, like, yeah, I mean, it's great.
Sounds rad. I've debated the merits of deck building with my friend Scott. He hates randomness in game design with a burning, fiery passion. For my taste, I love putting together a super swingy turn that flips a game on its head. Adam, in your opinion, how much randomness is too much before a deck builder stops feeling fair?
For me, there has to be like mitigation mechanics implemented, because a pure randomness is just like not cool with me. Like, I'm a dice chucker. I love dice. Some of my favorite game, Too Many Bones, is all dice. But there's mechanics on when you have bad dice, eventually they can become something good, right? So, like, when you pose this question, the thing I kind of go to is like, oh, deck building in itself is, well, it's random according to your draw. Well, if there's a draw mechanic in the game, there you go. You just solved your draw mechanic issue, right? Because now I built a draw deck, so now I draw my whole deck. And now I know I get every card I want, right? But, like, is that strong enough, though, to compete with some of the heavy hitters, right? So that's the balance you're trying to find. So, like, that's where I'm like, I can understand the swinginess, and, like, that's fine with me. But as long as I feel like there's a way to mitigate some of the randomness in different ways, that's kind of where I feel like then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this compared with other types of games, so like compared with dice rolling mechanics, I mean, deck building gives you more control over the randomness, which is good, you know. Now, granted, like we talked about before, sometimes you might not be able to get certain cards that you maybe need to get if that's semi-random, but still, you have control over what you're trying to do, and you have the ability to, you know, build up your deck and then pare it down to just these are the things that I really want to get, so that, you know, you cull some cards so that you can get some things more quickly. And, you know, going back to the example with, you know, Frosthaven and Gloomhaven, like, that's why instead of using, like, D20s like you would use in D&D, which I think was part of the initial idea with it, because a lot of it was just, like, a board game that was like D&D, but different, right? That's why they did the attack modifier decks, so that you could make it more interesting and you could control the randomness somehow by swapping out different parts of that. So instead of it just being like, oh, you have a plus, you know, 8 to your roll, you know, it's more interesting because it's like, no, if you roll a 7, which is kind of how it would work in that, if you roll a 7, you hit with a +1, but you also do this cool thing. And if you hit with a 12, you also do this cool thing. And so I think it's just so much more interesting to be able to have that ability to control the randomness, I think, compared with like tabletop RPGs where it's just rolling the dice and, you know, you control the randomness by increasing your score, and maybe having some abilities that would allow you to re-roll or whatever, but I don't know. I just think that deck building games give you the ability to try to control that randomness a lot more.
Yeah. Deck builders are right, Scott. You're just wrong. Sorry, my friend.
Well, I mean, neither of us mentioned, but I'll mention it now. The ultimate like mitigation mechanic.
Not playing
every single game. No, every single deck building game has this. It would be your talent of sleight of hand, and if you could stack your deck,
yes,
it doesn't matter at that
true.
point. So, I mean, if you're good enough to do that, I am not. But there you go. Solved every deck building mechanic randomness issue in one.
I can think of one friend who's no longer invited to the Thunderstone tournament. In addition to being a fun genre for the tabletop, we've seen deck building influence popular video games, notably Slay the Spire. As deck builders evolve from being a genre to more of a design tool, do you see more impact in the physical or digital space?
Yeah, I mean, in general, the digital space and board games seem to be getting closer and closer and closer.
Well, frequently, we just see video game adaptations of popular board games, like the Gloomhaven Virtual Edition is Gloomhaven on a PC, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, if you search your app store at this point, Dune Imperium's an app. Like
Scythe, we played.
I mean, most board games nowadays
most board games are becoming digital versions, and they're wildly I mean, Board Game Arena, can you consider that, you know, digital version? But it's
simulator,
right? Like it's literally. So I guess I think both spaces have seen the benefits from it, you know, kind of being a design tool and.
And when you look at it, a lot of that happens because the board game market, even though it's grown a lot and it's become more popular, and you know, there's a lot of people that are into it, a lot more now compared to a decade ago, 2 decades ago. It's still niche compared to video games, right?
Right.
And so, you know, it's one of those things where it's an easier way to sort of find that larger market by having digital versions of your games.
You know why it's niche compared to why board games are niche compared to video games? What does Gloomhaven second edition cost at retail? $250?
$250 now, I think. Yeah,
$250. I guarantee you that the video game adaptation will not cost $250.
No, it's like $50, and if you want the Jaws of the Lion add-on, it's like $15 more, I think, or something like that. And then they always have sales. Like, that's the other thing, is that, you know, your sales for video games are a lot more prevalent and happen a lot more regularly than your sales for board games, especially if you're looking for something that's not, constantly in the waste bin. We're just trying to get people to pay for this stuff, even though it's not relevant anymore that Miniature Market and some of those other online retailers do. It's, I don't know, it's a strange thing, like the combination between board games and video games, and it's almost become this whole Ouroboros snake eating its own tail type of thing, where you have Slay the Spire, a video game with board game mechanics at its core, which then gets a board game version of the video game consisting of predominantly board game mechanics. And it's just like, it's this weird thing. Are we ever going to get Slay the Spire, the board game, the video game, based on the award-winning video game?
Isn't that what Slay the Spire 2 is?
Maybe, I don't know. And so it's just, it's so weird. But that being said, I think good design mechanics are not just applicable to a specific medium. And so, we're talking about deck building. If that's something that fits into the mechanics of the video game that you're making, or some of those aspects of that mechanic would add a uniqueness to the game that you're creating, like, go ahead and do that. And the interesting thing is that, because I know a lot of people that design board games also play video games, and a lot of like the ideas that they come up with are inspired by things that you do in video games. And so seeing ideas like that, and the more that people iterate on these different ideas, it just continues to create this evolution of mechanics that just become more and more interesting for players. And create more interesting experiences. One example, as I was talking about before, of playing The Witcher Old World recently, is the way that the sort of deck of cards that you're building works. It's interesting in multiple ways. Not only that you're fueling different aspects of the game with different parts of the cards that you're collecting and that you're buying, that you're creating with your deck. Your deck size is basically the amount of vitality that you have in combat, which is also really interesting. And then they've also created a combo system within the game where what you have in your hand, if you can chain together different attacks that match the different colors. So each card, there's 4 different colors of abilities that all are like different types. So one color is like more defensive abilities, one's more aggressive abilities, one is more like tactical attacks. But then they'll each have like tabs on them. And if that tab then links to the color of the next card,
Devil May Cry,
that tab is activated. And so it's like you chain these 3 or 4 or 5 cards together that create this really awesome combo. Like it's super complicated to get your head around at the start of the game, and it's like you'll maybe trigger 2 cards out of like the 5 cards that you have in your hand. But then by the end of the game, you can string together like 6 of those things, and you like just deal like 14 damage to this monster that you're fighting. You're like, holy crap, this game's awesome. I'm a god. And so it's like, and it's just, when you look at Dominion and then you compare that to like where this has gone with these like complex mechanics that are added into it, as well as just like the better like graphic design gets and the better ideas that people get. And I think that's the good thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with all of this stuff sort of permeating and penetrating different mediums, because it just gets more people interested in the mechanics and more ideas that get out there in games that are created, to just sort of keep evolving games as a whole. And so I think that's great, even if it does seem a little bit weird to be buying the board game version of the video game. Yeah, that is very board gamey.
You took a very tactical approach, let's say, to that, and I agree with you. And I'm going to put a little like personal spin on it. So okay. I am a person that I play board games for the camaraderie, the connection, the memories. Cause
that's why you play solo games mostly?
Well, I mean, that's the second half. I'm getting there. Okay. So there's like also that physical component of having that physicality of something in your hand, and like to see a really well produced game on the table for me, it's just very like fulfilling. Now, recently, as we've just harped on me for every time I'm like, these guys reach out and they're like, hey, can you play? Never mind, it's Adam. He's probably too busy, right? Like, I feel terrible, but it's like, yeah, my life has gotten like chaos, like Millennium Blades over the last year. And so it's like, I've actually come to appreciate that merge, because now I've actually bought some of the digital copies of some of my games, like Dune Imperium, for example, because guess what? Now I can play it solo on a plane or whatever I'm having to do, and I'm literally still playing the game. Does it feel as satisfying as what I would do if I was to sit down and play with you two? No. But I'm still at least like getting a little bit of fulfillment from being able to play board games, even though they're digital versions of them. So like I appreciate the bleed that's happening between the two, and I can see why. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if I had the optimal choice and it didn't matter what I chose, and they said you want to play the video game version or the board game version of this, I'm 90% of the time probably going to lean towards the board game version of whatever game it might be. So, I mean, there's that element too, is because it's so recent and real to me, just the time investment of setting up a game, it's so much faster to hit a button on your phone.
Yeah.
Is it as satisfying as setting up that game on the table? No, not in my opinion, but each has its place, I guess. So,
and it's similar to what we talked about with Scythe when we played that, for the podcast, for the video game adaptation of it, and like Gloomhaven, like, there's no way we could have played Gloomhaven with John if we didn't play the digital version of it. So I don't know. I think it's good that there's that option out there, and it's only going to grow the hobby, I think, eventually.
Correct. Yeah.
And I agree, and I think deck building is going to be a big part of that growth, both on tabletop and digital, because it's an awesome mechanic. At its core, it's buying something better and purging things that are crappier from your hand. Like, it's just such a fun upgrade mechanic. So I love deck builders. I've had a lot of fun talking about them for the last hour and a half. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about or say about deck builders? Oh, one last question that I have for each of you, kind of a lightning fire round. If someone is going to listen to this show and be like, those sound pretty fun, I'm going to go out and buy a deck builder. What is one deck builder someone should buy? I swear to God, don't say Gloomhaven Burns.
Nope. I'm actually going to say a deck builder, and I'm going to say one that we haven't played, or we haven't talked about. And I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure this is a deck builder. One Deck Dungeon.
Dice builder. Dice pool builder.
Is it a dice builder? Okay.
You're playing through a deck of cards. Those are like the rooms that you're exploring and like the obstacles you're overcoming. Okay. So there is a deck of cards with it, but primarily you're overcoming those challenges, and those give you better dice.
Okay, well that's why we didn't talk about it.
Cut that. Try again. Okay, Joe.
Super fun game. I like it.
One deck builder.
I mean, I would say Dune Imperium. Granted, it's not just a deck builder; it has so much more to it. But it's the one that I would say if I was going to play a deck builder, even though I don't own it, I would say I'm going to go grab that.
Yeah, and I guess I would lean that way too, probably. But to mix it up, I guess Clank. I'll voice for Clank as well. I think that's a great one that might be a little bit easier to step into than Dune Imperium due to the complexities, and you're still getting a very satisfying experience.
And I'm going to go even more streamlined. I'm going to take one resource off the board. I'm going to say Star Wars, the deck building game, because I'm sure that everyone who has heard this show or listened to an episode knows what Star Wars is, and it's such a streamlined thing. You only need one other person. It's got all the iconic Star Wars stuff. It's super satisfying to blow up your opponent's bases, so like that would be my recommendation, and like it's available at Target, so that's an easy entry point for a lot of people.
And who doesn't want to play and shoot Klingons with Captain Picard, right?
You got it, Dice Master.
I know all these things. I'm locked in.
That does it for our annual board game show. Next month, Brian, John, and I will break down the first season of the anime, The Rising of the Shield Hero. In this same podcast feed, we'll drop part 1 of our Game Club discussion on Helldivers 2, actually our entire discussion of Helldivers 2, in the middle of this month. And then next month, we're going to break down the old isometric C RPG Arcanum in February. Burns, you excited to play something old?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one who rails against old games, and I am super excited. Like, I never had a chance to play this when it was relevant, and it's like, I've owned it on Steam for years. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make everyone play that this year. This is my contribution to the show. Here's a crappy old thing that we can all dump on, because old games aren't generally fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Outside is Overrated. Please review us on your favorite podcast platform and support our show on Patreon at patreon.com/OiO. For the Hobby Box, Joey Burns at HobbyBoxBurns. For Adam Wilson at Ox's Auditorium on Instagram, I'm Tom Sidlogic at TomSidlogic OiO. We'll talk to you next month. Stay inside, kids.